Hey, what's up guys, my name is Brad. Welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another Duel Links video, welcome back to another Duel Links discussion video. Today we're going to be doing our final video before 5Ds drops. It's coming in about 12 hours from now. As of the recording this, that's when the maintenance should actually end. And of course when that happens, I'll probably be streaming on YouTube. I'll be doing some cool stuff when that does drop. So if you want to come out to stream, be sure to check in on my page when the update does drop. But today we're talking about 4 free-to-play decks in Duel Links right now that really need their Synchro support for them to see a much higher level of play than they currently do. All of these archetypes have seen very different levels of competitive success in the ranked ladder as their time in Duel Links has gone on. We have cards from the card trader, we have decks that come out as rares and commons in booster packs, as event cards from the DD Tower. So all these 4 decks, they're all very free to play friendly, which is what I want to do for this video, because I think these cards more than any are the Synchro monsters and Synchro decks that Konami need to kind of support. So before we get into the video, a big thank you to Bless Koba and Matt for becoming my 4th and 5th channel members respectively. A big thanks to you for supporting the channel. If you want to become a channel member, you can click the link in the description down below. It's kind of like a Twitch sub, like $5 a month I think it is, and really helps me out more than the ads you watch on the channel would do normally. Without further ado, let's get into the video, starting with our first archetype, which is Aroma Jizz. Now, Aroma Jizz don't have all of their support. They're missing Aromage Kanaga, I think it is, something like that. It's a effect monster, probably the best effect monster they have. But Aroma Jizz actually got a Synchro monster in Invasion of Venom, which came out 2 years ago, I think it was. It was the last year of Arc 5 support. And this Synchro monster is generic. It's really, for the deck, it's really good, but for every other deck, it's kind of okay plant support. It's a level 5 light plant Synchro, which requires 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner, so it doesn't require a specific Aromage tuner, which is really nice. 2000 attack, 900 defense, while your life points is higher than your opponent, so again, fitting in with the Aromage theme, because that's the whole thing, they like being higher than your opponent. All plants and monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. That's making Bergamot even stronger than it already is. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one face-up card your opponent controls. That face-up card has its effects negated until the end of the turn. So, not a very powerful effect, but it is just a very good effect in general. It's just going to add another bonus on top of the current strategy of the deck, and it being a level 4 makes it a prime target for things like Aromage Rosemary, which is kind of given the card art and the name. But Aromages work best, and this card works best when paired with their tuner monster, Aroma Seraphy Angelica. So a level 1 light plant tuner, 0 attack, 0 defense, so you're not going to be summoning this and getting any amazing benefits off this. During either player's turn, you can discard this card, then target one Aroma monster in your graveyard, gain life points equal to that target's attack. So immediately, if you target your Rosemary in a graveyard or something like that, you're going to be gaining, what, 1800 I think it is? It's around there, so you're going to be gaining a lot of life points, and that's probably going to set your life points higher than your opponent's, so it's going to then trigger off the field spell effect and, you know, the effect of Jasmine on the field. While your life points is higher than your opponent's, which it should be because of this effect, you control an Aroma monster as well, and this card is in your graveyard. You can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So basically, you're going to use this to set yourself up to go into Aroma Seraphy Rosemary, which is a really nice strategy, especially when we don't have the other Aromage effect monster that's really good. This is like another second best option, I think, and definitely would be a nice boost to consistency for the deck and allow you to kind of keep going off of some plays, especially because when an Aromage kind of goes to the graveyard, that's kind of it. You kind of don't have any real way of having access to that monster again, I don't think. So this is a nice card to kind of keep reusing those Aroma monsters in the graveyard if they do end up getting there. The next archetype is Aliens. Now, obviously, Aliens saw a huge amount of competitive success. They are one of the most free-to-play friendly competitive decks of the format a couple of months ago. I think for a KC Cup as well, they really were able to show their strength. And Cosmic Fortress Golgar kind of helps the archetype in a really interesting way. So it's a level 5 light, again, 2600 attack, 1800 defense, so a bit more powerful than the Aromage Synchro monster, requires Alien Ammonite, plus 1 or more non-tuner alien monster. We'll talk about Ammonite in a second. Once per turn, you can select any number of face-up spell or trap cards from either player's field, return those cards to their owner's hands, and distribute new A counters among monsters on the field equal to the number of cards returned. So immediately, you can have up to 8 cards could be returned by this card's effect. 3 spell or trap cards on each player's side, plus field spells. So you can get out to 8 counters on your field in one turn. Once per turn, you can remove 2 A counters from anywhere on the field to destroy one card your opponent controls. That is a once per turn. That's a pretty fair effect, I think, because the whole deck right now kind of wants the A counters on the field to be used for things like special summoning out Alien Overlord, or in other cases being perfect targets for Brainwashing. Because if you combine this with Brainwashing Beam, then you can keep like putting on counters onto the monster you took control of your opponents, so that their monster won't get destroyed or sent back to their side of the field. I can't remember exactly which one it does. Additionally, when you're removing A counters from this card, you can combine it with A Cell Incubator, which will regenerate the A counters that remove for this card's destruction effect. So you can keep kind of recycling A counters with this. I think this is a very key part of the Alien strategy, and Aliens haven't seen much, if any, support outside of this Synchro monster since this came out in Crimson Crisis. As I was saying, this will be the last kind of support for the archetype. Next, let's talk about Alien Ammonite, the kind of whole key to this strategy. The only attuner that aliens have, level 1 light, 500 attack, 200 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one level 4 or lower alien monster from your graveyard, destroy it during the end phase. So really, that special summon is going to be integral to the Synchro play. If you don't get Synchro play off, then it's kind of useless, and that's it. Like, you'd either use this to go, if you need an extra monster on the field, to go for game, but more likely than not, it will be to summon Cosmic Fortress Golgar and use its effect to destroy a card on your opponent's side of the field, put counters on things, special summon out Overlord, etc., etc., to kind of build up that OTK board very, very quickly. Now, a very good strategy you can do with this is to use a recombination device to, of course, send a level 4 Alien Warrior or Alien Skull from your deck to the graveyard, and then, of course, bring it back with Alien Ammonite, and then you already have counters on your field. You can then bring out Alien Overlord, and you can just keep going through, cycling through that whole strategy, and keep those aliens coming and keep them swarming in their own way, which is a really fun strategy. I think aliens are going to be one of the first decks to get their Synchro support. I think they'll be very early on into the lifespan of 5Ds and Duel Links. Our next archetype is the Ice Barriers, and Ice Barriers have a lot of Synchro monsters. They have a lot of tuners as well. I think all their tuners aren't that great. I couldn't really find one that was amazing, and all of their kind of Synchro monsters are very generic as well. So you can splash them in any deck, but in this case, we're kind of taking them at face value as being in Ice Barriers. And there are a few Synchro monsters, and I think you'll know of them, that are ridiculously powerful and probably won't see play, but they're all kind of similar. So Gungnir Dragon the Ice Barrier is a 1 tuner plus 1 more non-tuner water monster. It is a 7-star, I believe it is, 2500 attack, 1700 defense. Once per turn, you can discard up to 2 cards to the graveyard to target the same number of cards your opponent controls and destroy them. So you are putting cards into your own graveyard, that's giving you an advantage in that regard, but you are having to lose out on hand advantage, but you're gaining field advantage by potentially destroying 2 cards. Of course, the effect can be negated, but it's not a bad card at all. I think this is probably one of the most likely Ice Barrier monsters we're going to get before we get into some of the bigger things. Then we have Duloran, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier, another one I think is going to be more likely to get. Level 6, requires 1 tuner plus 1 more non-tuner water monsters, 2000 attack, 1400 defense. This one I think is most likely. Once per turn, you can return any number of face-up cards you control to the owner's hand. For each card returned to the owner's hand by this card's effect, this card gains 500 until the end phase. So realistically, you're not going to be having too many face-up cards on the field in Ice Barriers or in any deck anyway in Duel Links. Your back row is usually kind of just face down, and it's mainly your monster card zone and your field spell, they'll be face up. So potentially you're looking at like a maximum of 1500 attack point gain. That is even if you can go into and get other monsters out on the field after you Synchro summon this guy out. Becoming a 3500 point monster potentially for 1 turn is really good, but one possible way that this can be abused is if you are running Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier. You could return your Ice Barrier monsters on the field to the hand, then you'd have your 3 different named Ice Barriers in your hand, play that, be able to destroy one of your opponent's cards and special summon out an Ice Barrier, and then you kind of have this nice big field. And so now me thinking about it, maybe they're just going to wait a long time for the Ice Barrier of Synchros in general, because I don't think they need them right now, but they are a very generic, bunch of Synchro monsters, and we'll see definitely some play if they did come to Duel Links. Speaking of very generic, very powerful ones, Brionac Dragon the Ice Barrier, I think everyone kind of knows this card. It's kind of like Gungnir, except it's ridiculously broken because it's any number of cards. It's not just 2, it's any. You could discard your entire hand, and then bounce your opponent's entire field pretty much to the hand. So Brionac, I think, is going to take a very long backseat, and probably won't be seen for a very long time, so I'm not going to spend too long talking about it. The same with Trishula, which is even more generic than Brionac is, and even more powerful. Requires 1 tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters, 27 attack, 2000 defense, so pretty good stats, but its effect is where it's killer. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. The card in the hand is chosen at random, so that's kind of crazy. Be able to banish 3 cards that your opponent could potentially use, and you get to choose the one from the field and graveyard yourself, pretty much. You don't get to look at the ones in your opponent's hand, you just kind of pick one randomly, but the one from the field and graveyard you can choose yourself. So if they have a card in the graveyard, like for example, let's just say Rose Lover, because that's going to come back with part synchros, if they have that in the graveyard, just banish that so they can't use that card's effect to spec a plant type monster from your hand, and just get rid of some pretty big boss monsters on the field. It's broken, too broken for Duel Links, and I think this would be coming way down the line, like maybe even some point into Exceed summoning before we see Trishula. If we see Trishula before then, I think Konami might have messed up just a little bit. The final archetype talking about today is Naturia. Naturia is again one of those archetypes that are very early on in Duel Links, saw a lot of competitive play when Beatdown wasn't nerfed to hell like it is currently. I think Naturias have a bit better tuners than Ice Sparrows do. So Naturia Cherry is a really good Earth level 1 tuner. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by anything, so by battle, by card effect, by being destroyed, it's got to be the opponent's card though. You can special summon up to 2 of these guys from your deck in face down defense, so keep replacing themselves out. Really, really good, really powerful card. And the next one is Naturia Cosmo Beat, which I think is another really good one, level 2 Earth in this case. When your opponent normal summons or sets a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, just getting this card out onto your field as quickly as possible, so next turn you can go in, normal summon another Naturia, go for a Synchro monster. Now, I don't think Synchro is the only thing that Naturia need to kind of be more competitive. I think they really need Bamboo Shoot, which is broken as hell. When it's tribute summoned by tributing a Naturia monster, while this card remains on the field, your opponent can't activate spell or trap cards. So it's basically an even more busted version of Jinzo, and again, I don't see this coming to Duel Links anytime soon, but we're talking about the Synchro monster today, and we're going to start with Naturia Beast, probably the most powerful one. So they all kind of work together. If they're all on the field at the same time, you kind of have an unbreakable board. During either player's turn, when a spell card is activated, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, negate activation. If you do, destroy it. This card must be faced on the field for the effect to activate and to resolve. That's ridiculous, especially when Naturias have a lot of cards that when they're in the graveyard actually benefit off being in there. So getting those cards to the graveyard is what you want to do. It's very easy to summon. It's a level 5, which means 1 level 4 plus 1 of the level 3 tuners. Very easy to get out. Then we have Naturia Landoise, which is kind of the same, except when this card is faced on the field, you can send 1 spell card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation of a monster effect and destroy it. So there's your monster removal. And then you have Barkion, which is equally as broken as Beast. During either player's turn, when a trap card is activated, you can banish 2 cards from your graveyard, negate activation. If you do, destroy it. Again, has that. Must be faced on the field to activate and to resolve its effect. I think Barkion makes more sense, because it is using up the monsters in your graveyard, and you're not going to be able to obviously get off their benefits of being in the graveyard, so I think that Barkion is the most fairest right now, combined with Landoise. I think Landoise is also really fair. Beast, on the other hand, is completely broken. Like, it's used so much in the TCG nowadays, you get this on the board, and then your opponent has to just play around Beast. However, the problem with all 3 of these is that their effects are not hard once per turns. They are completely free to use them multiple times in the turn if they want to, which is ridiculous. The only saving grace is that Duel Links has a lower card pool for the deck at hand, so you won't be able to get this card's effect off as many times in a turn as possible without risking that you might end up decking yourself out, or losing cards which you might need to keep that competitive advantage in the duel. So again, these 3 cards are pretty powerful. I don't expect to see them anytime soon, but I do think obviously the deck will shine even better once we do get them, and these are again generic. They do require Earth tuners and non-Earth monsters again, so that kind of is a harder restriction on them. Still really powerful, and of course in the Naturia decks, they're completely broken. That is it. That is my video for today. Hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know your thoughts, comments down below. 5Ds is coming very soon, tomorrow, and hopefully that will be a pretty hype stream and a pretty hype set of videos across the next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next Duel Links video. See you then.